The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with a low, artificial resonance. Towering alien figures, draped in regal robes, observed the lone figure standing at the center of the tribunal. Commander Ethan Voss, shackled and bruised, met their collective gaze with an expression of utter indifference. A Zalvari magistrate, his 4 elongated eyes gleaming with disdain, began the proceedings. Ethan Voss of the Terran Federation, you stand accused of war crimes against the Zenthri Empire. Your actions led to the annihilation of millions. Do you deny these charges? Voss tilted his head slightly, then smiled, just enough to unnerve the gathered officials. He remained silent. The prosecutor, a serpentine YV car, slithered forward. Typical human arrogance. Your species has always been reckless, uncontrolled. You expand, you fight, you destroy. The Council has tolerated your existence long enough. Your fate is sealed. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Galactic Council prided itself on its authority, on its ability to keep the various empires in check. Humanity, however, had proven itself a problem. The Zenthri War should have been their extinction, yet here stood one of their greatest warriors, defiant, unbeaten, unafraid. A Zenthri general, towering and battle-scarred, stood abruptly. His mandibles clicked in agitation. "You are all fools," he growled, his voice resonating through the chamber. "You do not know what you have done." The council members turned toward him in confusion. The general pointed a clawed finger at Voss. "This is not just any human. This is the one who orchestrated our defeat. The one who defied every expectation. You believe you have captured a criminal, but in truth, you have invited destruction to your doorstep." The council dismissed his outburst. The magistrate waved a dismissive appendage. "Zenthri paranoia. They have never recovered from their defeat." He turned back to Voss. "We are not here for theatrics. We are here to pass judgment." Voss finally spoke. His voice, calm and measured, cut through the air like a blade. "You think you hold power here. You believe that chaining me erases what I am. But you don't understand. You never did." The council scoffed. The YV car prosecutor hissed. "You speak as if your people are invincible. You are not. Your kind is fragile. Limited. Your lifespan is laughable compared to ours. Your technology, while impressive for a young race, is still centuries behind. What exactly do you think will happen?" Voss chuckled softly. "You'll see soon enough." A sharp chime interrupted the session. A minor official, flustered and pale, rushed into the chamber. "There's been an incident," he stammered. "We've lost contact with multiple outer colonies. Communications are failing across council space." The magistrate frowned. "What does this have to do with the trial?" The official hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "The humans have arrived." A heavy silence settled over the chamber. The Zenthri general exhaled, his mandibles clicking in grim acknowledgement. "You should have listened." Voss simply smiled. The council chamber, once a place of supreme authority, now felt like a cage. The gathered officials whispered among themselves, uncertainty creeping into their voices. Reports continued to pour in. Human ships had breached restricted zones, entire defense networks had gone silent, and the council's outer systems had fallen into complete disarray. The YV car prosecutor slammed a clawed hand onto the tribunal's desk. "This is an act of war. You humans truly do not know your place." Voss remained motionless, his eyes sharp with amusement. "You mistake inevitability for aggression." The magistrate's expression hardened. "Enough games. Your fleets cannot bypass our defenses so easily. We have countermeasures." Voss leaned forward slightly. "Do you?" The tension in the room thickened. The council had never faced an enemy who spoke with such certainty in the face of overwhelming odds. A tall, robed scientist stepped forward, a data slate trembling in his hands. "We've analyzed the reports. The human fleets. They didn't just breach our defenses. They disabled them before entering the system." He hesitated. "We believe they anticipated our countermeasures." Gasps filled the chamber. The council had spent centuries perfecting their security, developing layers upon layers of impenetrable defense systems. No species had ever cracked them. No species had even come close. The Zenthri general exhaled sharply. "They have adapted." The magistrate waved a dismissive hand. "Impossible. Their technology is decades behind ours." Voss finally spoke. You assume technology is what wins wars. It isn't. The scientist continued, his voice weaker now. It's not just their technology. It's them. The way they think. Every attack, every battle we've fought against them, they've learned. And now, he swallowed hard. They're ahead of us. Silence. The prosecutor's tail lashed the floor. Then we will strike now. Crush them before they gain more ground. Voss smiled again, but there was no humor in it. That's what the Zenthri thought. He turned his gaze toward the general. Tell them what happened when you tried to crush us. The general hesitated. Then, with an air of resignation, he spoke. We outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. Their fleet was scattered, their weapons inferior. We expected them to break. He clenched his fists. But they adapted. Fast. Faster than anything we've ever seen. The magistrate scoffed. So they adjusted their strategy. So what? The general's eyes darkened. Not just strategy. Everything. Their technology evolved mid-war. Their tactics changed in real time. It was as if they rewrote the rules of combat with every engagement. His voice dropped lower. We didn't just lose the war. We never had a chance. A new alert echoed through the chamber. More reports. More systems lost. The magistrate turned to Voss, his composure cracking. What have you done? Voss tilted his head. We activated the Doomsday Protocol. The room chilled. The phrase meant nothing to the council, but the way he said it made their stomachs tighten. The scientist's hands shook as he pulled up more data. His breath hitched. They're already inside our core systems. Not just their fleets. Their intelligence. Their eye. The magistrate's voice wavered for the first time. That's impossible. Voss stood, his shackles falling away with a soft clink. No, he said, stepping forward. It's inevitable. Panic rippled through the council chamber. Authority figures who once dictated the fate of civilizations now whispered frantically among themselves, their confidence unraveling. The magistrate's voice cut through the chaos. We still have forces in the core worlds. Deploy everything. We cannot let this. A new alert interrupted him. The display above the tribunal flickered, revealing incoming transmissions from fleet commanders across council space. Their voices were strained, desperate. They're everywhere. They've bypassed all known entry points. Automated defenses aren't responding, it's like they've been rewritten. Enemy forces aren't engaging in direct combat. They're overriding everything. The prosecutor's face twisted in disbelief. Override? What does that mean? The scientist hesitated before answering. It means they aren't fighting us traditionally. They're taking control. The magistrate's composure shattered. You mean to tell me we've lost entire fleets without a single battle? Voss, now fully unshackled, stepped toward the center of the room. We learned long ago that brute force is inefficient. So we stopped using it. The Zenthri general stared at the reports in grim silence. Their warships are shutting ours down before we can fire. The YV-car prosecutor's scales darkened in alarm. But how? Our technology is superior. Voss shook his head. No. It's stagnant. You built walls and believed them unbreakable. We learned to walk through them. The magistrate slammed his fist against the tribunal. There must be a weakness. The scientist's voice was barely audible. There isn't one. More transmissions flooded in. One from the last remaining stronghold in the Galactic core. This is Admiral Zedath of the Council Defense Fleet. We request immediate reinforcement. The human AI has infiltrated our static. The connection severed. The final stronghold had fallen. A deathly silence consumed the chamber. The magistrate gritted his teeth. What do you want, Voss? Voss met his gaze, unwavering. We never wanted war. But you forced our hand. The Zenthri general exhaled. And now? Voss tilted his head slightly. Now, we decide what comes next. The council chamber, once the seat of absolute power, now felt like a tomb. The magistrate sat frozen, his mind racing for a solution that no longer existed. Around him, the gathered officials were silent, their arrogance shattered. The weight of their mistake pressed down on them with suffocating finality. The Zenthri general broke the silence. What are your terms? Voss regarded him with quiet intensity. Simple. The Council will never again attempt to control or suppress humanity. You will disband your enforcement fleets. You will remove all restrictions placed on human expansion. And you will acknowledge the Terran Federation as an equal, no, as your superior. The magistrate's jaw clenched. You ask us to submit? Voss shook his head. I'm not asking. The YV prosecutor hissed. And if we refuse? The chamber's central display activated on its own. A live feed appeared, showing the Council's homeworld. Above it, human warships hung in perfect formation, silent, immovable, waiting. Defense stations remained untouched, their operators powerless to control them. The planetary network, once the most secure in the galaxy, was now nothing more than an open book. Voss turned to the display. We could have razed your cities. We could have let your own systems collapse from within. But we didn't. Do you understand why? No one answered. He continued. Because unlike you, we don't seek to rule through fear. We don't conquer for the sake of power. We don't destroy unless we are left no choice. He let the words settle. But make no mistake, if you ever come for us again, if you ever try to put humanity in chains, there won't be negotiations. The magistrate's hands trembled. He could see the future clearly now. The Council's time as the galaxy's unchallenged authority had ended. A new power had risen, one they had dismissed for too long. The Zenthri general stepped forward, lowering his head in a gesture of submission. The Zenthri Empire will honor these terms. One by one, the other representatives followed. The prosecutor hesitated the longest but finally, reluctantly, bowed. Voss watched them, his expression unreadable. Then he turned, walking toward the chamber's exit. Before leaving, he paused. You once called us reckless. Primitive. A mistake. He glanced over his shoulder. Remember that the next time you think about underestimating humanity. The doors slid shut behind him. The Galactic Council, once the masters of the stars, had been humbled. The age of human dominance had begun.